In this session, we're going to create some transitional grading using a grading object. Historically, if you have to do transitional daylight grading in your corridor, as you head down the street, your daylight grading may change from 3 to 1 to 6 to 1. Historically, that's been kind of difficult to get nice transitioning of that daylight slope from one setting to the other. What we're going to look at here is a means of doing that transition using a grading object. On my screen, I have a drawing open. That drawing is called Surface STH25 Refinement Datum. In the interest of full disclosure, let me come over here to the Prospector tab. I right-clicked on Data Shortcuts and I said Set Working Folder. And the working folder I chose was Civil 3D Projects 3. I went into the project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I went into the design folder and then I went into the surfaces folder to access this drawing. So this represents my refinement datum surface. Let's zoom in here. I'm interested in doing the grading here in the northwest quadrant. I'm going to orbit my screen. I'll do that by holding the shift key and the wheel on the mouse. And we'll tip this up. Let me pan it down a little bit. I'll tip it up a little bit more. Just want to move this up so we can see the ditch flow line here as it comes around the corner. Pay note to the grading. Right here I've got daylight grading of 4 to 1. You can see that's a relatively flat slope. As I orbit this around, on this side I have daylight grading of 2 to 1. Now this is a little extreme. I set this to be a very steep angle just so that we can easily see the difference on screen. What I'd like to do, let's go back to a top view. I'll go to the View tab here and then I'll choose Top. Then I'll zoom back in. What I'd like to do is create my ditch line and then I want to create my daylighting, but I want my daylighting to transition from a 4 to 1 slope to a 2 to 1 slope. Now I'm doing this in a curve, but you could do this along a straight segment as well. The process will be the same. It's just using a grading object instead of going in and creating overrides on your corridor. So let's start by creating the ditch line. I'm going to use a feature line for that. I'll go to the Home tab. I'll launch the feature line command. For my site, I'll call this Northwest Quad, and I'll click OK. We'll name the feature line. I'll call it Northwest Quad Ditch Flow Line. We'll assign a style. I'm going to choose Roadway Ditch Flow Line, and I'll click OK. For the start point of my feature line, I'll choose the end point right here. I'm using a running object snap. And you can see that Civil 3D recognizes the elevation of that point. I'll press Enter to accept that. The next point will be the end point here. I'll click. Once again, Civil 3D recognizes the elevation. It's listing that elevation as a grade from the previous elevation. If I type E and hit Enter, we can see the elevation of that point. Let me press Enter again to accept it. Then I'll type A for arc and press Enter. And we'll work our way around the bend here. Now this actually isn't too bad. I'm going to select the end point here. I could use S for second point and pick a pass-through point for the arc, but really this isn't too bad. I'll click here and press Enter and accept the elevation. I will then tap L for line and press Enter, and we'll do a straight segment to the end point here. I'll press Enter to accept the elevation, and I'll press Escape when I'm finished. If we orbit this up, we can see that feature line as it goes around the bend. I've got a little bit of overlap that I'm working with. That's perfect. At the risk of destroying the end of the movie here, I'm going to create a grading object that transitions nicely between these slopes. We'll put a surface on it, and then we're going to paste that surface into our refinement surface. So let's go back to a perfect top view. I'm going to go back to the View tab here, and I'll choose Top. Let's zoom back in. I'll select the Home tab, and I'll create the grading. I'll do that by opening the grading menu, and I'll choose Grading Creation Tools. I'll assign my group first. I'll do that by clicking the icon here on the left side. And I'm going to choose my site. Let's choose my Northwest Quad site. Group name. I'm going to call my group Northwest Quad Grading. I would like to create an automatic surface, and I'm going to go with the EX triangles style. That way I can see the triangulation when the surface is created. I'll click OK. It's going to create a surface with the same name. Let me click OK, and I'll click OK. I've got to do one more thing. I have to tell Civil 3D what surface I'm going to daylight to. I'll do that by clicking the surface icon here, and I'll choose the existing surface, and I'll click OK. Then I'll choose the Create Grading button. I'll select my feature line. I want to grade to the outside, so I'll click out here. Apply to the entire length. N for no. I'll press enter. Now where's my start point? Start point is going to be the end point right here. I'll select that point and I'll press enter to acknowledge the station. And I want to grade from that point to the end point right here. I'll acknowledge the station. And this area will have a cut slope of 4 to 1, which is the slope that we have here already. So this is perfect. I'll hit enter and accept that. Fill slope won't come into play here. I'll press enter. Now I'm still in the command. You can see I've got my first little grading object there. Still in the command, let's select the feature line again. I want to grade to the outside. And my start point is going to be right here this time. I'll press enter to acknowledge the station. We'll take this all the way down to the end. I'll acknowledge the station, and my cut slope here is going to be 2 to 1. So it matches the slope that I'm tying into. So I'll type 2 to represent 2 to 1, and I'll press enter. Fill slope won't come into play. I'll press enter, and then we'll press escape to get out of the command. So as I tip this up, really hard to see here, but I've got a grading object that's at a 4 to 1 slope going to a grading object that is at the 2 to 1 slope. Let's go back to the View tab, and we'll go to a top view. I'll type RE to do a quick regen, and now we'll create a transitional grading between these. I'll do that by opening this grading menu, and I'll choose Create Transition. I'll click my feature line, and then I'll click this area between the two gradings. There we go, it's been created. I'll press Escape when finished. Now I can close this menu. If we orbit this around, we can see a nice, perfect transition from that relatively flat 4 to 1 slope going into that 2 to 1 slope. And it ties perfectly to our existing surface. Now let's go over to Prospector. We'll slide this up until we get to the Surfaces category, and I'll take my refinement surface. Let's expand this, and under Edits, I'm going to right-click and I'll choose Paste Surface. And I'm going to paste my northwest quad grading surface into the refinement surface. When I'm finished, let's scroll up until we find that northwest quad grading surface. I'm going to right click and go to Surface Properties, and we'll change its style to No Display to hide it from screen. And you can see that that triangulation has now been added to my overall refinement surface. And we have successfully created some transitional grading from one slope to another.